Welcome to Culture Before Content. Culture Before Content, from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. And now, here's your host, David Duarte.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm David Duarte, your host for Culture Before Content. Whether you're tuning in live or catching the replay, I am extremely glad you are here. Hope you're having a great Sunday. Unless you're listening, I hope you're having a great day. At Music for All and within the Culture Before Content community, our mission is to create, provide, and expand positively life-changing experiences through music. And we are also incredibly grateful to have Yamaha as our national presenting sponsor. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you're joining us live, this is your chance to be a part of the conversation. And don't think I haven't seen some of you already comment. So thank you for doing that. But anyway, drop a comment on either YouTube or Facebook, and we might feature it here on the show, especially if it makes sense. Sometimes you never know. Anyway, I love hearing your thoughts, questions, and experiences. So don't be shy, whether it's a quick shout out, a question for our guest, or something that resonates with you. Jump in and be a part of the discussion. And if you're going to catch us on the replay, you can always watch the full episode anytime on Facebook or YouTube, because it's perfect for revisiting key moments or watching at your own pace. But you might prefer to listen on audio. Audio episodes are available every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major platforms, so you can stay connected wherever you go. I love to listen to them in the car. They sound so good. For our latest episodes and past conversations, visit musicforall.org/podcast. It's your one-stop shop for everything culture before content. It's kind of a thing now. All right, so let's get through quickly so we can meet our guest today. But last week we had a special guest. We had Mr. Michael Pote from Carmel High School. His pedagogy is his culture. His program is shaping to be one of the best always. It is great. It is built on a foundation of trust, ownership, and accountability. His ensembles thrive because students take responsibility for their success, engage deeply in listening, feedback, and musicianship. A lot of listening, a lot of singing. When we spoke, he shared how his focus on intonation, ear training, and the harmony director transforms his students into instinctive musicians. He explained that they don't just play in tune, they feel the music together. Experiencing his bands is something special. Their performances aren't just impressive, they embody a culture of excellence that is truly inspiring to see and hear. And anytime you can catch them, I recommend you do, whether it's marching band, jazz band, concert bands. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's get to our guest this week. This is going to be an amazing week. We have Miss Kacee Sanders. She teaches at DuPont Hadley Middle School in the Metro Nashville Public Schools and serves as the executive director and co-founder of the Southeastern Women in Music Symposium, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to amplifying underrepresented voices, providing professional development, and commissioning works by emerging women composers. She is a well-recognized advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, and music education. She was also recognized as a 2023 CMA Music Teacher of Excellence and as a 2024 Yamaha Music Educators 40 under 40 recipient. She is amazing and a dynamo. Her teaching emphasizes student independence, leadership, and personal growth. Former students describe her as a teacher who makes them feel acknowledged, supported, and valued as musicians and individuals. Her work has had a lasting impact due to her high standards in music education and the culture of inclusion, respect, and excellence that she fosters in every classroom. So without any further ado, please welcome to the show, Kacee Sanders.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, how did I do? I love introductions. I think it's my favorite thing to do.
Oh my gosh. It just like every single time you were just talking, it was just my cheeks were just getting bigger and bigger. I was just smiling so much. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited.
To the world that's watching and to the world that's listening, Kacee and I have had a whole whopping 24 hours of getting to know each other. So, let's see, and there we go, Mr. Sanders, Mrs. Sanders, yo. So that's from Steve. I just like to. Anyway, my point is, we got a chance to, talk beforehand and get to know each other. And so, like for me, it always comes down for the feeling tone of what we have to offer, and then what an amazing person you are. And I think to our audience, I want to say this, culture before content is to me about collecting the people who are the wow. And, I'm very honored to have every week. And so having you here is great. And just our little chit chat yesterday, it was amazing to get to know what you do and where you're at. So like maybe we can talk a little bit. Let's introduce you to the world. So maybe tell us a little bit where DuPont Hadley is, and in Metro Nashville, and then maybe just talk about a little about your school, your band, and why you were here.
Sure. So DuPont Hadley Middle School, you've already said, is in Metro Nashville Public Schools. We are located on kind of the outside ring of Metro Nashville. So we're not directly centered to downtown, but we're kind of in like the ring, almost leaving Davidson County. From outside of my band room, I can see Old Hickory Lake, which is kind of I've never had the luxury of seeing such a beautiful thing kind of outside of my band room, which is kind of cool. I teach 6th through 8th grade. I have been here, this is my 3rd year here. And I think the thing I'm the most kind of proud of with my program is the amount of growth that we've seen since I've been here. So when I first came in the fall of 2022, we had around 26 students registered for band. And I am now proud to say that 2.5 years later, I have over 85 students across all 3 programs.
Wow, that is amazing. So, it's kind of funny, here I live in Washington State. Really, I live I'm so close to the Portland airport. It's crazy. Everyone thinks I'm from Oregon, but I'm from Washington. But, DuPont Hadley was just a few miles from my house when I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. And I just, I always tell people, a lot of cities are like a clock. So like to me, DuPont Hadley is at 1:30. So on the outside of the clock. But just for our listeners, she is getting just an amazing amount of haze on the comment section. This is great. It's just nice to see so many people that love you. But you talk about the growth of a band program, and so let's I always say some of us have our own talents. Some of us are great with the talent that we have. Some of us can take any situation and build. And I think that's really the foundation of who you are. So, you've been teaching, just so long, and what you have done in such a short amount of time at this school is to be commended. So maybe talk about not only that you have the growth, but maybe let's talk about why some of that growth has occurred. So, talk about your classroom more than just, I had 2 kids and now I have got 4 million. So that's the way it feels to me anyway. But talk about that growth.
A big part of the growth is I never say no when a student comes up to me and says that they want to be part of my program. I have students joining in at any point in the semester, at any point of the year. I have my 8th graders, half of them are brand new beginners and half of them have been playing their instruments since beginners. And I think that is what's building the growth. And it's the students communicating to one another saying like, you should want to be part of this program, come and join in. And it's my acceptance of everybody and my willingness to be patient with them and get them caught up and include them in what we've got going on.
Yeah. And so like I said, and let's talk about some of those things. So we were talking yesterday and you had told me that you're getting ready to go to performance assessment. Is that true? And so for those of you out there, I think all of, if most of us have the performance assessments, whether we call them festivals, competitions, whatever. But and Nashville, which by the way, if you're not from the Nashville area, Davidson County and Nashville are kind of the same thing. So there's not really much Nashville outside of Davidson County, but in Middle Tennessee, which is where you're at, not only do you have to go, perform your selected pieces, but you also have to do the very scary sight reading portion of that. So, maybe talk about what the things that you've done to prepare your kids. Is this their first experience and all those kinds of things?
Sure. So this is my first time taking a group from Hadley to CPA. It's been a build to get to this point, and I'm so happy and I'm so excited for my students that we're finally at that ready to be able to go. We go on Tuesday. We've been working super, super hard in class. We've brought in some guest clinicians to come in and work with the groups. Let's see, we have practiced our UIL sight reading during class. I'm not really sure that there's anything else we could have done differently to be any more well prepared for on Tuesday.
Oh,
No, don't be scared. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so great. Oh my gosh. You're gonna get to perform outside of our building, which is something we rarely get to do. You're gonna look your absolute best on Tuesday. And whatever happens, we're gonna be proud of ourselves. We're gonna be so incredibly excited, and we're gonna have a pizza party.
Yeah, and
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and that's some of the culture I want to talk about because to me, the day of the event, when you've been teaching for 20, 30 years, you kind of get into this pattern of what the day is. But for you, you're not making it just about the assessment, and it is. I mean, as us music teachers, that's all we can think about is, did you number my biggest stress is did I number my scores? Which, by the way, the answer is no. I still got a couple of weeks left. But you're actually providing a day, and and for like the student who just popped in on the stream there, they don't have a understanding or a visual or a feel yet for what this has to offer. So talk about that pizza party, talk about what you're doing to get your kids prepared and why you're having the pizza party.
It's just a huge celebration of everything that they've worked for this past, really, since they picked up their instruments. It's really special to get to share what we have prepared for others. And like that's just the whole reason of why we do band, is to be able to just like really showcase what we're able to achieve and what we're able to accomplish, whatever that is for our ensemble. It's going to be different for every single group that's going, and that's super fine and okay. Whatever we kind of present on Tuesday, I know is going to be what our best is, and that's kind of the most important thing to me.
Yeah, and I think, you're really working on creating a culture of engagement and belonging for your students. And, and to me, I think when, the first time I take a kids to a festival, it always comes down for them to finally see what I know so that they can feel what I feel, because I think getting some of that alignment is some of the hardest part. So to some of the students out there, I cannot wait for this event for you. And to all the teachers out there, you can validate some of those feelings, because that really is exactly what it is this culture that you're creating to take these kids to festival. Because I think in terms of education, there's all these assessments that, in every state, we all have our state assessments we prepare the kids for. And I almost feel like, when we're on campus, we spend so much time preparing for those events, as an education community. But then they're done, it almost feels like, okay, well, the year's over, now we can kind of go. But for us as music teachers, it's just that point for us to get a little data where our band's at. What are we going to do for next year? For me, I'm always constantly thinking, what am I going to play next year? What am I going to, based upon the feedback that I got, did we choose wisely? Do we need to feature more? And, and for me, did what we select offer what I wanted to accomplish for them? So, we talked about, some of the students and, just getting them ready and some of the types of students that are going, like, we were talking, I know yesterday we were talking about, you have a student that, is this going to be something that's her first festival? Is she ready for it? And we were talking about, level of musicianship and how that doesn't really matter. What matters is what we take and what it sounds like on that stage. So, what kind of students do you feel like you have right now going to festival?
I have a extreme, diverse group that's going. Like I kind of mentioned earlier with building my program, I don't say no to anybody. And this might be a little bit of a band director hot take in the world.
Oh, I love hot takes.
I know. I am not denying the opportunity for any of my 7th and 8th graders to get to go to festival. Kind of talking to some of my colleagues and some of my friends, like I love you guys, but it does break my heart a little bit when I hear you guys talking about, only selecting certain 7th graders or, only selecting certain students based off of an XYZ criteria. I feel like this is my opportunity to showcase what my band is on every single day. And it's not anything except that. And that's what I want to take. And that's what I want to have representative of me at festival. And that's what I want my students to be able to have, because you don't know what music can do for somebody until they just have that experience and that opportunity. And I just want to give that to everybody.
I always say to people though, when you think of it, sometimes we forget as teachers that we were students once too, and we had feelings too. And to me, I'm trying to provide those moments, and this can be a complete opportunity for that moment to happen. And in my dream world, everything's perfect, but it really does. There is a difference of opinion by people who take everyone and those who take it by some programs are built on my best students are in this top group, and that's the one that's going to festival, and some of us don't have that luxury of it's like I said, my band program is my wind ensemble is dictated as you are not a freshman. Okay, you're in wind ensemble. So basically you're not in ninth grade, and any ninth grader who auditions in. So there's still a little bit in there, but we take everyone, and it's not leveled. And so I think that is extremely, and where do you feel you got some of this, inclusion practices from? Where does that come from in your life?
I think it's just a little bit of experience and a little bit of just kind of seeing this play out in my years of teaching. Like I can like pick through from every school that I've taught at, like the one student that when you're sitting in the lunchroom or like in like the workroom during lunch,
Correct.
and all of the teachers, they're talking about this kid. You're talking about how they can't sit still in their class. They are constantly interrupting. They are, like XYZ. And they just need a place. And they just need a place to be able to have those things kind of tweaked and to seen in a better light. Like, it also breaks my heart whenever you go into like an IEP meeting and we're kind of running through all of the things that we're seeing that needs to get fixed or needs to get changed about the student. But there's not enough that's being said about the wonderful things that student is able to do or is able to like contribute. And I have seen that in my class. I have seen the student who got suspended 2 days before the last day of the school year for taking another student and starting a fight in my class. And then the next year they're back with me, and they were the first student to say, "Miss Sanders, I am so excited for Tuesday. This is going to be the greatest thing ever." Oh my gosh. Thank you, Miss McKee.
Who is Miss McKee?
She is my amazing assistant principal.
Well, I knew who she was, but I just wanted to have you to make sure. But like I said, for our listeners out there, one of our admin has spoken, and thank you, Miss McKee, for coming in and saying that, because it is something to feel of value, and that kind of speaks to what I'm saying. Because there's two things I feel that's going on: there's supportive environment and high expectations, and so those two things sometimes, it's a whirlwind of trying to keep this balance for this culture that you have going on. So how do you balance your high expectations and still keep that supportive and inclusive environment?
Oh my goodness. I have no idea.
But I think that's the best answer I have had ever. Because I think that's what was really unique about, like I said, I was talking to you yesterday about this, to our audience that's out there, everyone who comes on this show and is a guest, sometimes I know them, sometimes I don't. And getting to know them, there's the one thing that everyone has in common. They're all awesome. And what I've learned from most people, and it doesn't matter who it is, they don't even know why they're awesome. They just are. And that's what we're trying. I'm always trying to capture some of the things that each one of my guests has. So like for me, it's like that inclusive environment is something I live and breathe. It is so, and sometimes it's hard, sometimes you have that kid who after 6 months still only has, maybe they have all their notes down, but rhythm might be thing. But and meanwhile, you've got it paired next to a kid who's playing all 12 scales, has figured out that minor is a thing, and off they go, but they're still in the same classroom. And I've heard things, and this is maybe my little hot take, I don't worry about whether or not I'm balancing that all-state student along with that kid who can play 5 notes. To me, we've got to find that way. And when you talked about the IEP, I just had one last week, and it was just so heartwarming because when I got my chance to speak, the parents just, we band folk get spoiled sometimes in IEPs because we are sometimes the reason why that kid goes to school, and they let us feel it, and that kind of what keeps me going. But what are some of the things you do to make your kids feel special?
Um, I think it's just really taking a genuine interest in who they are as humans. Like they're not just the third clarinet player in my class. I have cafeteria duty in the mornings during breakfast time. And like I greet every single human as they come in, regardless of if they're in band or not. I ask them, hey, how'd the game go last night? Like I've got a ton of my band kids that are in sports. And, some of the other kids as well, I've gotten to know them just from being in the building and just talking to them and just really building relationships with them. As corny as that kind of sounds, I that's incredibly important. I also give as many performance opportunities as I can to them. Our school, as a Title I school, has a Community Achieves representative. It's kind of like a community support personnel that's hired as a human just to help out with any sort of financial need that a family might have. And she had a partner meeting a week ago, and she asked, hey, is there any way that we could have a couple of kids play? I said, girl, I got you. And had some of the 7th graders come in and play their festival music for the group. We do quarterly recitals after school, where the kids they create the program. They do like the little Canva slide deck for the program. They figure out what they're going to play. They're the ones who figure out the order in which everyone's going to perform. It's super informal, and it's just a chance for them to just kind of just share what they would like to share. And I think giving as many performance opportunities like that also just really builds my kids up.
Do you think that some of that student leadership, though, comes out of that student expectation where because that's, sometimes we teachers sometimes we're horrible enablers. Like, oh, this isn't going to do. I got to get my program done. I was just thinking today, because that's what's on my task list for tonight, is getting my students involved to do everything that we need to do through the week. So Mr. Duarte can kind of watch it, because when there is student engagement, and maybe this is my hot take, I don't know. When there's student engagement and they take care of it, it doesn't matter. It just gets done, in my opinion, just in a better way. And maybe it might be different than what I expected, but boy, getting those students engagement, because I think this leads to my question about student retention. How has this affected your retention numbers with your class? How's your retention, and do you think that student engagement is part of that?
They have incredible ownership in the program and incredible ownership on the day-to-day as well. I have like section meetings during our rehearsals. You're another band director hot take. Band directors should not stand on a podium the entirety of class and bark orders at the students, where the students just stay quiet and sit in their chairs and do exactly what they're told. Like, y'all, it is 2025. We have well moved on beyond that. And our students are beyond capable of making musical decisions, of being problem solvers during the rehearsal process. We're making musicians. We're making critical thinkers. We are not just making really, really good little rule followers that are really good at just playing, again, the third clarinet part. I get them involved. I ask for their opinions. I ask them, like, hey, what do you think we need to work on right now? Do we need to work on style, or do we need to work on our dynamics right here? What piece do we want to begin with today? We're going to get to both of them, but giving them the ownership and the choice to say, oh, let's get started on this one right now, and then we'll end with this one. Cool, great, awesome. Same work's getting done, the same product's getting done, but they're the ones that are a lot much more involved in the process.
So here's the scary question. What do you say to a middle school teacher? Because that's, I want to remind people, we are listening to a middle school teacher. Because to me, in my brain, I just hear, I'm thinking high school teacher, because that's, I'm internalizing here. But really, you're pulling this off and saying exactly what every teacher. What do you say to the teacher that says, well, I can't get my 7th and 8th graders, or even 6th graders to behave? Or like, how do you get this? Is it from will? Is it, what do you do to make this happen?
I just remind them why they're there in my class. Like, I'm thinking, like, I love you guys because I know that you're on here. My little 8th graders, you guys love to talk. You love to talk so much. And it's lovely and wonderful until it's time for us to get something like done. And I just remind them why we're here. I just remind them, hey, this is our goal. What do we need to do to get there? And then 9 times out of 10, they're the ones who say, yeah, you're right. Let's get back to it.
Do you
So
have
it's
any
again, it's the ownership.
Yeah, and do you have any magic recipes for guidance? Because, like, how willing are you to let a kid make a mistake so that they can grow from it? Or, I mean, because sometimes we are like, I don't know. It just seems like to me in the last, bunches of years that we've been very afraid to let kids make mistakes or even have us make mistakes. And hot take moment, I believe that's how I learn. I believe the mistakes are what I do. And it's not because they're intentional. As I always say, I'm giving 100%. If I'm making a mistake, I'm giving 100% to make that mistake happen. And so, like, how do you guide yourself? How do do you have any strategies? Do you how do you take do you take time off in the evening so you can mentally prepare every day? What does Kacee do to, like, be prepared every day to be like this?
I really strongly feel like, for me to be able to be my best every day when I go into school, that I have to have a really strong separation of my work life and my home life. I am a single mom. I am balancing the nonprofit. I'm balancing the Southeastern Women in Music Symposium. I am balancing kind of never saying no when one of my colleagues reaches out and says, hey, I have this question, I have this idea, I need some help with this. And it's wild. It's a lot of plates juggling. And I think having a space here that's nice and calm, having my cat is hanging out below me, but my cat helps me. I'm a huge fan of indoor house plants. It kind of gives me a chance to kind of calm myself and kind of decompress. And I have also found the most incredible group of humans teaching in Metro. We have a wonderful group chat that we are all messaging back and forth to. We are encouraging one another. We're checking in on one another. We're celebrating one another. And that really kind of feeds me too.
Yeah, that was probably the next thing I was saying. Let's talk about that supportive community that you have for music educators. Because I believe one of them is a former guest on this show, Laura Shepard. I believe you are out there and you're listening. I saw Julie Jolly pop in, so it's nice to see some familiar names I haven't seen in a while. But talk about that. I mean, how is this something that you joined? Was this? I mean, maybe describe it a little bit so we can hear how this has helped you and maybe give people the idea to have their own.
Sure. So my first year at Hadley, it was really, really difficult for me. It was a huge change coming into a new district, and such a drastically different district at that too, with its own unique needs and with its own unique ways about it. And it's just really hard. And that's when I really met Laura Shepard. We had known each other kind of prior to that, but that's when I feel like we really became really close. And she was one of the humans that really got me through. And she had this wonderful idea of creating a text message group of only other women band directors, specifically music, middle school band directors, in the district. And it was just a way for us to just kind of check in with one another. It was just kind of a way to share ideas. And like now it has become a daily part of my life, like checking to see what's going on, sharing where the Girl Scout cookies are so that way people can go and get their fix, asking ideas for how can I better teach music literacy to my students, what are things that I might be forgetting for CPA coming up. It's a lifeline.
Oh, hey, Laura. Laura Shepard just popped in. Well, hey, Laura, how are you doing? I love you dearly. You are amazing. But what's funny? We should probably tell people this because a lot of people don't realize how big, Metro Nashville is not the biggest district in the world, but it is a big district. How many schools are in Metro Nashville?
A lot.
Yeah, if I remember, it's hundreds of schools. I just remember that there was I never figured it out. Like 160, I don't remember. It was a lot. So if anybody out there knows how many schools are in Metro Nashville, so how many middle schools are out there? So like when you're, like I said, the neat thing about Metro Nashville is the county, the city are one and the same. So like it's every school that's in that district represents that entire area. So it is a very big community, but it is a very inclusive community. So, and so what kind of effect, like maybe when you're having a bad day, when you're having a good day, do you guys share like pedagogy things like, oh my God, I just tried this new thing and it was amazing, you also try that? Do you guys do all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. All of the time. We share about our wins of like, hey, I just found this new Book It, which if you don't know about Book It, it's a little website video game, sort of like review game that the kids, they're going to eat it up. Found this new game, or I found this new resource, or hey, I just had a disastrous rehearsal. I don't know what in the world just happened. We just share everything. And it's so refreshing to hear on all spectrums, because you really get kind of really involved in just the four walls of your room. And it's just so refreshing to hear what's going on in other places.
So Laura Shepard has chimed in 30 middle schools and 160 schools. It is a large district. And so, what do you say out there to the isolated band director? Because, it doesn't have to be a group of band directors. I will say this, if anybody has ever texted me, I have typically texted back. I'm pretty good at it. Or if anybody's ever messaged me, I typically message back. I have formed, this community, and I have band directors that I share with all the time. And it's kind of neat because you form this group, but I want to encourage anyone out there to reach out to band directors maybe you're comfortable with, maybe people on the show, reach out to all the former guests on here and just start a dialogue, because I think that dialogue is important. How many times has those text messages helped motivate you or got you through a day?
Like 100% of the time.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like I laugh because every once in a while you're having a bad day and a magic text from somebody pops up that just says, you got this. And it's like, how do they know like what's going on in my day? I mean, I don't have it, but I'm so thankful because it starts to make you feel, because it goes back to here's my quote that I keep going. We remember people for how they make us feel. And I think that's who you are. You are the feeling queen. You are like literally to your students, to your administration, to everyone out there. Like I said, we've heard from all levels. And so, like I said, it's really neat to capture some of that. But I do want to kind of go on to another subject here, because what my worry is, we're always going to run out of time trying to cover all this stuff. But let's talk about your group, your the Southwestern, that's where I'm from, Southeastern Women in Music Symposium. Can you talk about that? Maybe how it got started? Just start from scratch. Tell us about it.
Sure. So a former student of mine, Maya, she also I'm a percussionist, one of the rare ones out there, of the lady people. And Maya, also female percussionist, she was finishing up her high school years in Girl Scouts. And kind of the big project that you want to finish with Girl Scouts is the Gold Award, kind of equivalent to Eagle Scouts, for those of us not familiar. And the big components of it is she has to put in 80 hours of service work to create the thing. And the thing has to be sustainable. She wanted something to do with music. And I really don't remember how the idea kind of came about. But having like an all women honor band, like how cool would that be? And what would that even look like? So we kind of toyed with that and we settled like, this is going to be it. And to make it sustainable, we came up with the idea to take all of the proceeds from the ticket sales to commission a piece of music, because that is forever. As many times as someone wants to perform it, it's sustainable. So that was 2022. Our first clinic was 26 people on the stage. Somehow we had beautiful instrumentation. It was as equal as could be. We had Dr. Britton Braddock, who is at Mercer, as she's director of bands there. So she came and was our clinician, and all the pieces that we played were composed by women. And it was just incredible. It it just felt so light, and it felt so supportive just to be in that space. And like we like performed, it was a 3-day event, 2 days rehearsals, last day concert. And we kind of all got done and we're just looking around like this can't be it, right? Like there was like tears of just like gratitude of having experienced this. And Maya and I kind of said, let's do it. So we filed the paperwork to be a 501c3. We created the website. We have this really seen how far we can take this. And this past December, we had our 3rd symposium. We had over 100 students packed onto the stage. And we had our 2nd commission piece performed, which is really cool because the person who we got to commission the piece is from Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
So she was able to actually perform in the ensemble with us. Her name is Dayla Spencer. She is an MLK grad. She's currently at Montclair University, I think it is, for composition. And she's just incredible. So she got to be part of the experience with us. And Maya and I are just looking forward to see how far we can just kind of keep expanding this.
So for our listener out there, the website has popped up. I would spell it, but would it take me about a half an hour? So I'm just going to say it. It's all one word. Are we ready? Southeastern Women in Music Symposium.org. So Southeastern Women in Music Symposium.org. I am not spelling that. I will make a mistake halfway through. That's amazing. So, I always, I looked at the description, underrepresented voices, because I really think it is, we have to be more purposeful in our teaching. I think in our programming, in our thought process, and not because we have to, but because we should. And so like a lot of what my belief system is, and this is actually one of my questions now. I'm very purposeful in who I program and how I program. And it still is a balance in the force. As I say, there's always a balance in the force, so it's kind of like a wedding, something old, something new, something borrowed, play the blues. I'm just throwing that out there. I used that line once on a concert. But actually you popped a question in my head, because this is for our general. If somebody's thinking about doing this, how much effort was that 501c3? Because I always like to hear everyone's opinion on how that is. Because everyone thinks it's difficult, but I think when you hear it from somebody who's done it, it's not so bad.
It's not so bad. It sure does seem really scary because it's paperwork. And I think, speaking for all band directors, we have all been traumatized by paperwork. It's not too bad. And especially having 2 people kind of sitting and knocking things out, it's mostly a waiting game once you've turned in the paperwork. It took about 6 months to get our status sent to us, but it wasn't horrible. It's definitely something I would not want to do a second time, though.
Oh no, and also to our listeners out there, it varies from state to state. So make sure you've got that, how I did it, and we got ours done almost in like 3 months. Is we just used Chat GPT and got the list of steps to do, and then we called the state, and then but it went so super faster, and that kind of list of things to do in your state were different. But because if you can do something in your district or your area or in your personal community and create something, I think that creates opportunities for others to see what we do. Because I know there are things out here in the Pacific Northwest that are following this very ideal, and I think it's fantastic. And I again, maybe share some of those feelings of accomplishment, or what those feelings have led you to do, or what is it? What are the future plans? What are the things? What's driving you?
So future plans are to kind of continue expanding, and it's been definitely a growing spot for me as someone who really wants to take charge and be the person who's kind of responsible for everything, but giving other people an opportunity. So we had 2 of our former participants reach out to us a couple weeks after our December symposium, and they reached out wanting to do something similar. They were overwhelmed with their own participation, and they wanted to kind of give back to their communities as well. So instead of having them kind of go through the grueling process of their own 501c3 and kind of creating everything, we said, well, why don't we mentor you 2? Why don't you guys operate underneath us? And like, we kind of coach you as you go through the process of establishing your own event. So in May, we are launching the Women's Chamber Collaborative, which is like a chamber music version of what we've been doing. And it'll be at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so what do you think that, maybe some of this diversifying and this underrepresented composers has helped maybe strengthening some of the inclusiveness in your own program, or just, your own thoughts and belief on inclusivity? What are some of the correlations there?
It's very clear that I have a very strong opinion on representation in the ensembles. But I purposefully make sure that even in my own ensemble that I am mixing the composers that we're including in our classes. So one of the festival pieces that we're taking is Point 5 by Laura Estes, because why would I play music that's not representative of my kids in my class? Like, over 50% of my students are female identifying. So why would I not have 50% of the music that we're playing also be representative of them? So, and also I'm adding to the state list, and I'm building what that repertoire is, and hopefully encouraging more directors to look at these other composers as well.
I also have a chime in here, because I met Laura online once because we were talking. I know from another former guest. I feel like our music community is really like two degrees apart from any of us. Like, if we know somebody that knows the other person, and off we go. And so, like, building that repertoire list would be amazing. I feel like we should, find some better ways to share. These are types of compositions. These are the grades, or like, even better, one of the things that I've been looking at more on is, what does this piece teach? Because that's the one thing that don't take this wrong. You might take this wrong. This might be a hot take. I don't know, but I'm not necessarily invested in the composer as much as I'm invested in what that piece teaches. And I am invested in the composer because I do believe that, this piece will, that's why I always ask for recommendations. So just building a more of a collaborative of what these music, so, like, Laura, if you're out there, thank you, because you were I've done some of her pieces in my band and they're just fantastic. What other kinds of things has the Symposium done for you, or does it offer?
We do topic sessions instead of only just playing music the entire time. We also have different sessions based off of what our participants have kind of communicated to us that they would like to build better skills in. This past year, we did a interview skills with one of my colleagues, Danielle Taylor. She is an elementary music teacher in Metro, also former CMA music teacher of excellence as well. She's incredible. She has huge personality. So she did a whole session on kind of selling yourself and how to present yourself in an interview. We had Laura Verdone come in. She is a Bandwagon music rep. Bandwagon is kind of one of the local music stores here, but she has 30 plus years of music experience. And she came in and gave this wonderful presentation on filling your bucket and kind of reflecting on all of the things that happened in your life to kind of get you to a point of where you are now. And we also had the new CMA Foundation's senior executive director, Michelle Kirk, come in and just kind of gave a very kind of like a Q&A with our participants about being in the music industry. So we're not just giving music experiences, we're also giving sort of like life experiences too. And it's been something I've dearly enjoyed listening to as well. You can always do better with interview skills. You can always do better with kind of reflecting on where you've been to where you're going to get. And it's just so refreshing hearing incredible women just sharing with other incredible women.
And how much of that has transferred back to your classroom? Really, how much of that inspiration goes back into the classroom and drives you?
I mean, I think it goes back to the inclusion, and it goes back into every single student deserves a place in my chair, in my chairs, because you have no idea what that experience is going to do for them moving forward.
So what do you say? What do you say to the band director out there that's listening? You know, if you had to start your career all over again, what are some of the things that you have learned through your experience? What's some advice out there that you would share?
I wish I had a community from day one that I felt comfortable in, that I felt like I could ask any question, and I knew without any sort of a doubt that I would not be judged for it. I would be supported and I would be cared for.
Oh, that's great. Judgment-free
Yeah.
zone. I would like to,
Judgment free.
God, now you've got me thinking, how can I, that would be fantastic because, when I think back, I was a younger teacher back in probably, I don't even remember. It's been so long since I was a younger teacher, but I just think, I think my advice out there is it's okay to make mistakes. It's what you learn from them. What
Yep.
other things have you learned on the road on your journey that you would like to share?
It's okay to try things. It is 100% okay to just change things up and to not kind of go by the norm. I have found such incredible growth and sort of, I'm trying to think of how I want to phrase this. Like, just like being proud of my kids and my students, of what they are able to contribute to the conversation. If I did not have that sort of courage to just try things and to experiment and just see what can happen, I don't think that my classrooms would be like what they are today, like super collaborative, super open. Yeah.
I was thinking of this. What does your classroom look like like when we walk in? What would it look like when we see it?
It is probably more noisy than some kids, like some teachers would probably be more comfortable with. But I think it's delightful. It means that they're excited to be there. It means that they're comfortable. And while I have to sometimes kind of remind some students, like, hey, we have to wait our turn to be able to give feedback, or like, hey, please raise your hand before you just kind of blurt something out. But them being so involved and them being so invested, like, you see that in my class, and I think that that's so cool.
I mean, I don't think noise is ever a factor. I think we all have our own classrooms and our own special way. I think it would be more a worry if you didn't want the noise as opposed to do wanting the noise. Because I say this too. Like, I've been teaching long enough that every band has a different they're like children. Every band has a different personality. Like, even my day, I teach choir and band. So I have a definite different personality from start to finish every day. Because I think to myself of like, I've never had a choir that's quiet until now, and I think a lot of that just had to do with the classroom environments that we've inherited over the last few years. And now, as you say, once you get some of that growth going, just gonna get things, because I think it speaks to the excitement. I mean, how would you scale the excitement of your kids on a daily basis? Do you say they're somewhat excited, totally excited? What do you say on that?
I would think that they're either incredibly excited to be there, or they're a little bit grumpy cat because they didn't even want to be at school that day. And that's okay, because the next day, we'll bring you back. We'll make you excited. That just means that I'm going to talk to you a little bit more between what I see you right now and the next time that I see you. Try to build them up a little bit more.
Well, don't you believe that sometimes when those kids are being quiet or loud or rowdy, that there might be an external that has nothing to do with band? And I think that I have to remind myself of that every single day that I'm a teacher, because sometimes you don't realize that maybe they're having that bad day and they were acting out, or they respond a certain way, but you might have been the one positive voice that took care of it. I think consistency and being consistent is the name of the game. And I think that's, like I said, I'm loving the interaction today on the chat stream here. I'm trying not to go to it, because I'll turn into the ADD king. And then I'm like, wait, what were we just talking about? That was great. But you can see, like I said, it's nice to, like I said, it's nice to see so much interaction, not only from students, from colleagues, from administrators, from colleagues. It is just fantastic, and that speaks so well of you. So besides just how to come into the classroom, maybe describe a typical rehearsal before you leave today.
Sure. We're going to start off with breathing exercises. As much to their dismay, it is very healthy and good for you to do them at the beginning of every class. We'll do our breathing exercises. We will kind of mix into whatever our warm-ups are. I love the John McAllister warm-ups. They are some little quirky, it gets all of your good content in of long tones, articulations, tonguing exercises. But Fridays are for playing along with the little fun music track that goes along with them. It makes the kids, especially the sixth graders, sound like they're playing in like a Marvel movie. And they get so hype and excited about that. Oh my goodness. And then occasionally, depending on how behavior has been, depending on how engagement has been, we'll do some assessments in class. But this is one of the things I'm most proud of, I think, in my class. I use a wheel of names generator on like you could just go online and it just picks all of their names. So you can throw them in and you can choose from all sorts of like little like goofy sounds for whenever the wheel goes. Like I'm going to date myself a little bit. It kind of can sound like Survivor a little bit. Or kind of like a reaping from like the Hunger Games, if you will. And a kid's name will get selected. They are hyping each other up. And then that kid has to play a solo for the class over whatever content we're working on. And building those sorts of little fun things in class to make it engaging. Having the students have like little section meetings to make sure like, okay, what's the okay, altos. Is it an F sharp? Is it an F natural? Okay, it's like, let's decide, let's figure it out. Show each other. You know, I can stand up there and I can tell them the difference, but them talking to each other about the difference just builds the engagement.
Do you have any
It's so
do
nice.
you have any are there any Kacee Sanders catchphrases that you use? Are there? I always love to find out somebody like your students will probably tell me first if I ask them like this. We all have the things that we say in class that are just our thing, but I think that's what makes it special. But I do have some surprising news. I just looked up at the clock. We are at 52 minutes. This is my whole thing. I still got like 1,000 things to ask. I always say this. I would love to see your classroom one day. I would just love to pop in and see what the energy is like, because that's all I am seeing is energy and that. So, as we get to the end of this today, like, I always say this podcast focuses on culture. And I think that's what if you had any advice out there or some final thoughts for people out there, how important is your classroom culture? What is your culture, or what are your thoughts on just the word of culture? I mean, we got to a little bit of pedagogy today because that's my belief. It doesn't, like I said, like you said, I don't care if the classroom's not, if that's your culture and it works, great. That's for you to decide. That's not for others to decide. So, I love it when the admin pops in again. Thanks, Tiffany, for popping in. But let's think about our final thought. What does culture mean to you, or maybe some final thoughts for others on what culture could mean?
It's a place where my students know that they can make mistakes and they can grow from them. My culture is a place where every suggestion is valued and heard. And sometimes we try it. It is a place where they know they're going to be supported. It is a place where they kind of grow to be who they are and they grow to be themselves. It's comfort, it's love, it's friendship, it's community.
That is fantastic. Well, I cannot thank you enough for being on the show today. It was like multifaceted too, because like I said, I feel like sometimes, man, let's just let's go to the video and watch a 5-minute presentation of the classroom so we can see it in action, because it's one thing to talk about it, but there's another thing to do it. And again, I want to say out there, there's your email. I could have guessed your email address. It's like everybody's email address. It's your name dot your last name at your district. And luckily, Metro Nashville has the best. I love the MNPS. Anyways, for our listeners out there, her email is Kacee, Kacee .sanders@mnps.org, Kacee.sanders@mnps.org. And I would, look at that. And you've got, socials. You want to say your socials out there for everyone?
Sure. So Metro Schools is just there to be able just to tag the entire district. The Southeastern Women in Music Symposium's Instagram is there. Please give us a follow. We are constantly giving out new information or pushing out new stuff. Always trying to give a shout out to the composers that we're working with as well. And then my personal Kacee.Sanders. So sorry, students. You guys are going to have to wait until you're not my students anymore for that one.
Oh yeah, that's always scary. When my students find mine all the time, and I'm like, I'm ignoring you. Please go away. But for our listeners out there, anyone, just sort of advice, because like even my students teach me they know more about Instagram than I do, but tag people. It really does help if you want to spread the word or spread the joy. So if you've got something and you want to thank Kacee Sanders, by all means, tag her in those things, and it just helps some of those socials along. But Kacee, oh my gosh, so fantastic. You are a dynamo, and Metro Nashville is lucky to have you.
Well, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Well, kids, I'm so glad you could join us today. That was special and fun. But this is just a friendly reminder. You can watch the podcast after you're done on video. The audio broadcast will be out Monday on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And you can always stay with us and be connected by going to musicforall.org/podcast. And again, I want to thank my Culture Before Content team for making this possible. You can always reach me at david.duarte@me.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I've heard from many of you. But thank you for being a part of our culture today, and hopefully it's making it our culture and not yours. Thanks again, and see you again next week.